second lesson in sociology, and the title is Research Methods. To start, we need to ask ourselves first, what is a research? The goal of a research is to test the assumptions and replace the false ideas with facts and evidence. Research is a type of task that's done where we go and find out answers to our questions. These questions are usually assumptions, they're not true yet, they're not supported with evidence and facts yet. There are three steps of research. 1. We ask why and how questions. 2. After we ask these questions, we form a hypothesis or a statement or a big question. And 3. We use the research to find out the accurate understandings or the accurate answers to the hypothesis. The answer usually either agrees with the hypothesis and supports it, or disagrees with the hypothesis and does not support it. When we start our research, we have a lot of methods. The two main ones are, or the two types of research are quantitative research and qualitative research. Quantitative research uses numbers, quantities, numerical data. It includes surveys and pre-collected data. Qualitative research relies on narratives, words, descriptive data. Now, the types of research that we can do are surveys, this is quantitative, secondary analysis, this is also quantitative, experiments, again, it's quantitative, and finally, case studies, it's qualitative. This week, we will take surveys, or we will start with the surveys. In a survey, people answer a series of predetermined questions. The people surveyed are described in terms of populations and samples. Okay, we have a topic, we have hypotheses, and we need to start testing it. We will get people. This population of people is a group of people with certain specific characteristics that a researcher wants to study. I need to study the effects of peer pressure or family pressure on high school students. So my population will be a group of high school students. So it's a group of people with certain specific characteristics that share what I want from the research. Now, most populations are too large to study. The survey would cost too much and it would take a long time to end. This is why from the population, we pick something called a sample. If I need to survey or test all of the high school students that I can find in Egypt so I can form or test my hypotheses, this is going to take almost forever. Instead, I take a sample. A sample is a limited number of people that represents a larger population. I don't have to take all of the teenagers or the high school students that are in Egypt. Instead, I will take only a bunch of them, a sample of them, a limited number. So how do I pick the sample? The sample must be selected carefully so it can match the larger population. This sample that we select carefully is called representative sample. A representative sample is a sample that accurately reflects the characteristics of the population as a whole. Now we need to pick the representative sample carefully because if the sample is too small or the characteristics of the representative sample does not match the general population, then the answers to the surveys or the survey findings, they cannot be used. We cannot use them to make generalizations about all of the population because simply they're not accurate. So back to our question, how do we pick our representative sample? This is simply done by random selection. The process of random selection is done without any rules. We do not pick according to gender. We do not pick according to location. Simply, Each member of the population is assigned a number, and the numbers are drawn from a container after they have been scrambled. So I will pass by, for example, 5 schools from 5 different cities in Egypt. In each school, I will ask the high school students to number themselves. I will put the numbers in a container, and randomly I will pick the numbers that I want. I do not know if they're boys, if they're girls. I have no idea who they are. This is the best way to select my sample randomly without any previous thoughts. In surveys, information is obtained through either questionnaires or interviews. So I picked the topic, I picked my questions, I picked my population and sample. I know who are the people I'm going to ask. Now to the second step, which is how am I going to ask them or what am I going to use to ask them? We have 2 methods. The first one is a questionnaire. A questionnaire is a written set of questions that participants answer themselves, while an interview is an oral set of questions. In both interviews and questionnaires, we have 2 types of questions asked. So I will pick whether am I going to write some questions and the participants are going to answer, or am I going to do this face to face orally? Whether it's written or interviews, I need to add questions to the surveys. These questions are divided into 2 types, close-ended and open-ended. A close-ended question is usually a question that has no personal answer. Instead, the participant chooses from a limited, predetermined set of responses. These questions are usually true or false, yes or no, never or sometimes or always, agree or disagree. There is no room for personal opinion. There's no gray zone. It's either black or white. This type of question has its advantages as well as its disadvantages. Why is this type of question good? It's more precisely measured. We can count how many participants circled yes. We can count how many participants circled disagree. The responses after we collect them can be easily compared. And because it does not take a lot of time thinking, people just answer it quickly, we can collect a large number of responses or participants. Going to the disadvantages, because the responses are limited, sometimes the answer does not suit the question. There might be a certain question where you might answer not a yes or a no. It depends on the situation. So you need the maybe option or you need to clarify your choice. Why yes and why no? So sometimes the answers are not really suitable to the question. Another thing is people can respond in any answer. You just want to finish the survey, so you're going to circle whatever answer you see in your face without thinking. This leads to misleading answers. The last disadvantage is that this type of surveys is usually expensive to make and distribute. By the time we print out the surveys, go to the places where the participants are, give them out, and collect them again, it takes a lot of time, effort, and money. To the second type of question, which is the open-ended question. This is the total opposite of the close-ended. These questions they usually require personal answers. They require details. They require words. For example, in your own words, describe so and so. Or what do you think of this? Do you agree with this? Yes, why or why not? The answers to these questions are never one word. They're never yes or no. You need to add your words. You need to add your personal opinion. Now, the advantages of this type of question is that it reveals details and attitudes. All the details that we need to know about a participant, we can collect from the personal answer. The disadvantages is that people find it hard sometimes to answer the questions. Sometimes you're bored or you're not in the mood to write down answers or to clarify. It's easier for you to circle a yes or a no. So sometimes people leave these questions empty in a questionnaire and they skip them. And again, we're back to the misleading answers or the answers are not enough. The last disadvantage is that it's hard to compare. People have different opinions. They might, for example, agree with something, but they have different explanations. So it's very hard to compare the answers. This is an example of a questionnaire with short answer questions. As you can see, the close-ended questions, I mean. There's no room for personal opinion. You pick the range of your age, you pick your gender, you pick your occupation. Now, to the questions, what do you prefer? It's either this or that. Do you think? It's either yes or no. How often do you? It's one of these time frames. So there's no room for personal answer. This is a close-ended questionnaire. This is another type of a close-ended questionnaire, but instead of using yes or no, and instead of using words, we use numbers. The numbers are usually from 1 to 4, and 0 is unsatisfactory or unrelated. 1 is the lowest and 4 is the highest. And then they circle the number. Again, it's close-ended and there's no room for picking something other than these 5 numbers. On the other hand, this is another type of the survey or questionnaire with an open-ended question. As you can see, there are no choices, but instead you're free to write whatever you want. You're free to write your own opinion. Now, this is targeted for little kids, so as you can see, the questions are a bit easier and a little bit lower than your level. One of the questions says, what are the 3 things that I do best in school? It did not specify, is it educational or is it fun or is it activity? My hobbies are, my favorite sport is. So it leaves personal space to write whatever you want. These were the types of the surveys. This was the first part of our lesson. As we said, we talked earlier about research, and we said that there are several types of research. This week, we took the first one, which is the surveys and the types of the questions that we can find inside a survey. Next week, we will continue with the rest of the research types that we can use to collect information from the population. If you have any questions, please get them ready so we can discuss them in our extra care online session.